News You Need is a look at current events and how they affect the college community and beyond. And now here's the host of News You Need, Dr. Ed Simpson.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another very exciting edition of News You Need. This is the show where we talk with the best human beings in the whole world, which is our USM students, and we talk about what's in the news, what's on their minds, excuse me, and things that are important to our community. And the reason why we talk about the news is because it is the weather report for our society. It's the idea of what issues we are facing as a collective and what kind of decisions need to be made about those issues that we're seeing. So as usual, let's get kick off by going around the table here. We also are joined today by Dr. Hale. Thank you for coming back.
Hey.
So let's kind of introduce yourselves, maybe tell us your name, maybe your major, your hometown, and what student group you're with, if any, and we can talk about what's going on.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Travis Posey. I am a sophomore here at the University of Southern Miss. I am from Ridgely, Mississippi, and I am currently majoring in communication studies.
Ooh, love that. One of ours.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is Brent. Hey, it's good to be here again to chat with you lovely folks about what's going on in the world today.
It's Lillian, producer of News You Need, senior communication studies major.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, we talked about this before, but you're graduating in December.
Yes.
Very exciting. Travis, you get to suffer with us for the next couple years.
Yes, sir. I don't consider it suffering.
It ain't no suffering at all.
There
It's
you
a
go. That's
privilege.
excellent. So, what do you want to do, Travis? What's at the end of the day? What do you want to do?
I'm not exactly sure yet, but last year I was a unexploratory studies, so I didn't really have a major, and I took public speaking, and my public speaking teacher recommended me to the speaking center. Unfortunately, she moved to I think it was Illinois.
Yeah, she did.
So yeah, I didn't get that opportunity. Hopefully, I will next semester. But I just learned through public speaking that I'm real comfortable using my voice, and I don't mind getting in front of a group of people and speaking about something that I'm passionate about.
That's great. Well, I'll tell you, that's an important skill.
Yes, sir.
And that'll come back to you many times. That's great. Good to hear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so students, what's on our minds? Obviously, there's something huge. Let me just ask directly, how are our USM students reacting to the re-election of former President Trump?
Wait, the election's over? I didn't know about that.
Wait, yeah, were you asleep for the last couple of days there?
Yeah, it's been kind of fatiguing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was up real late that night.
Yeah.
Took a long time to recover.
I feel like it's a lot of emotions on both sides. Some people saw it coming. Some people are surprised. Me personally, I'm not too surprised at the results of the election, but I can say that it's kind of 50-50 from what I've been hearing. Some people are happy he's back elected. Some people aren't as happy as others. So it wavers among the community.
Yeah. What are you hearing in your group, Lillian?
My group, we're not too happy about it.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that's. I would expect our USM students to be a little more on the upset side than on the kind of waffling side of things. We know that the African American sororities were all in on Kamala, and that did not go that well. So Lillian's just kind of.
I don't really have too much of an opinion on it. Yes, I am
Yeah.
a part of a D9 sorority, so I did see the impact of that community. But other than that, I feel like Travis said, it's kind of like 50-50. Some people enjoyed the election, some people didn't. So it really is what it is now. We got the next 4 years to deal with whatever.
Yeah, well, there's some of that going on. Dr. Hale, what are you hearing?
50-50 sounds basically like the election went, in fact, yeah. So I had a lot of classes the day after Election Day, so it was on Wednesday, and I had a lot of really tired-looking students in my class. I was like, you all okay? They're like, no, we stayed up till 3, and we're really tired. And I found that, first off, no one wanted to talk about it. It was like, we just don't want to. It's not the time. We're going to do it maybe in a few weeks, but not right now. But it did really seem to me like it was a split decision between the folks that I was looking at, where some folks were looking pretty pleased with the outcome, and about the other half were looking pretty despondent or weren't there. because they were so despondent about that. So it really did seem to me from the interactions that I've had with students this week that we are looking about 50-50, honestly.
You know, my sense isn't that. I will say I really do think my circle and the folks that I deal with very much a processing. They're in the processing mode. They're not sure. There's a heightened anxiety about what a second Trump presidency means. And I think that that's something I'm not sure we're ready to deal with as a society yet. Have you come across students in your circle, friends in your circle, that are more anxious today than they were before the election?
Oh yeah, most definitely, and I really believe that's because of the unknown. They don't know what to expect with the second election of Trump, and that's understandable because sometimes he can be unpredictable. But I believe that we'll be all right for the next 4 years.
Okay. I think I think that's where a lot of folks are heading, is that we're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. I will say this: I'm less optimistic than I was. I think that the guardrails that were in place in 2016 are no longer there. I think that democracy was indeed on the ballot on Tuesday, and democracy lost. And I don't know what that looks like. So I agree with the anxiety of unknown. I don't know that we have another choice other than it's going to be okay, because what's the alternative to it not being so anyway, that's just...
It seemed like that was the mentality of a lot of folks. It was, we're going to be fine. And it really did come down to, from what I'm understanding from exit polling and kind of looking at kind of how things went, it was a decision at the end where a lot of people made where they said, look, I am unhappy. And I have a choice. I can either choose to go with the person that represents the status quo that has already made me unhappy, or I can just roll the dice and see what happens with someone who represents quote-unquote change, even though he technically was already president once before. And so, yeah, it really did feel like, let's just kind of see, because either way, we're going to be fine. It's kind of the mentality I was seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. To me, it's just that with Trump, I don't want to say that he gets out of his way sometimes, but like you said, some of the guardrails that were in place are not in place anymore. So I think it's key for the American people to keep an eye on some of the things and some of the statements that he's making, and also for Americans to do their own research and not just listen to what anybody else is telling them, and actually listen to the press conferences, listen to the interviews that the president is giving, and understand what he is saying, whether they may be good or bad, so that you can prepare yourself.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Why we're here every week. Both our listeners are very informed, so we appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
So just a real quick headline that I just kind of want to tease on the other side of our break here. This is from CNN. This is their top headline this morning, and it's sort of an example of everything. Trump's promises to remake the government would change society. So that's their main headline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you guys to think about that, and we'll pick that up on the other side of the break.
In Southeast Mississippi, we stand united for the most vulnerable in our community. Become a game changer and volunteer by calling United Way of Southeast Mississippi at 601-545-7141. We have one life. To live better, we must live united.
Estos son los sonidos de una cena que casi no sucedió. Es una cena servida gracias a personas como tú. Debido a la crisis actual, 50 millones de personas pueden vivir con hambre este año. Feeding America está ayudando a los que más lo necesitan. Y si quieres, tú puedes ayudar también. Visita feedingamerica.org/en-español. Patrocinado por el Ad Council y Feeding America, la fuerza de 200 bancos de alimentos.
Okay, we are back. And so I think that headline, it kind of struck me as really sort of as the roots of what a lot of people are feeling post-election is this idea of you can get by Trump, you can get by his personality, you can even get by a couple of the policies. But this idea of remaking society, do we feel that, or are we not? Are we avoiding that, or is it something? What are we thinking?
I do feel like there will be a change. I don't know how drastic of a change it will be, but that brings me back to my point of the unknown, like not knowing what the change in society would look like. And I think that's what most American people are fearing right now, the unknown. And that's okay, but sometimes change is good, sometimes change doesn't work out. So I'm just eager to see what changes will be made, and hopefully people will have an idea by the time that change is implemented on how they need to live their lives and what they need to do to get by.
Yeah. No, I think that's great insight.
I think since we're talking about society, I think it's kind of important to highlight, some of the suicide rates that went up after the election as well, because that is affecting society, because nobody, thought that anything like that would happen, especially after an election.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about that. I think intuitively it feels like that, but I'm not sure I'm buying into that yet. But I get it, and I think that goes just everything that we've been talking about. But so now the next decision, the next thing we're looking at, of course, is that we know the Republicans are going to control the Senate. So Donald Trump obviously is a Republican. We know the Republicans are going to control the Senate. It's very likely they will control the House, although it's not completely decided yet. So,
and in addition to that, it's looking very likely that he'll be able to appoint new Supreme Court justices too.
Correct, and that's also already been discussed, right? So we know that Trump appointed what is now the majority on the Supreme Court. Very, very likely that he can appoint at least 2 more. So what that means is, rather than a divided government where you have sort of a check and balance, you're going to have a government, not even just Congress, but executive, Congress, and judicial, controlled by one party. I'm not sure what I'm asking here, other than what do you think? Kind of goes back maybe to the idea of paying attention, right, and figuring out what's going on, and what can we as individual citizens do.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to knowing Trump being unpredictable. And now that he has, since he is a Republican, he has his Republican Party backing him in both the House and the Senate. You don't really know what to expect at this point. That's why I just keep saying American people need to be vigilant, keep their eyes open, ears peeled. So whatever comes, you won't be surprised and you'll be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Whether it's a change in policy, where it's a whole reshape of the government, we're here now, so ain't no turning back. We just got to face the music.
Yep.
And clearly people have gotten to the point that they are more comfortable with the centralization of power in an authority figure. That's something that people are progressively more, I don't want to necessarily say interested in, but more comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so we are seeing that happening right now. I tell you an interesting thing that I've been seeing as well, and this is the type of kind of conversation that's being had among Trump loyalists and his supporters, is saying, okay, listen here, buddy. We gave you the presidency. We gave you the Senate. We gave you the House. You have control essentially over the judicial system. Now is your time to make good on the things you told us you were going to do. Let's see what that looks like. And so I think it's going to be interesting in the next 4 years to see how successful, or at least the next 2, and how successful he is in achieving the things he's promised, because people are saying, like his supporters are saying, okay, now is your chance. Let's see what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, so let's just go right to it, right? His main promise during the campaign, over and over and over again, was mass deportations of illegal immigrants. Using the military, using law enforcement, basically turning over the immigration system into a militarized get-out-of-here system. So let's assume that promise is followed through. Are we okay with immigrant camps set up in Mississippi while folks are waiting to be put on trains or planes back to some mythical home country?
I'm not really sure if we're okay with it, because with immigrants, a lot of immigrants are working people in the country, whether they're on paper or not. Some have work things that they do. Some people have visas pending. So I feel like with the mass deportation, there should be some checks and balances to understand who this person really is, where they came from, and what they're doing in the country before you just say, oh, you're an illegal, you got to go. You know what I mean? But I do feel like over the last maybe 2 years, the border control was pretty bad. So there are definitely some immigrants that came and caused trouble. You know, I read about an article of a whole Venezuelan gang taking over a tenant in Colorado.
That story has legs. It really does. Yeah.
And when you read stories like that, it's like, okay, yeah, some of these immigrants are a problem, and you have to do something about it, whether it's deport them or, you know, put them in jail or anything like that. But as far as camps, I don't know, because I don't know how that would look inside the camps, because we've heard in the past about how camps like that look.
Well, that was an issue in the for his first term, right?
Yeah.
Is setting up basically camps along the border where children were separated from their families over and over. So now we're talking about that on steroids.
Yeah, I don't think anybody with a real heart, would agree with, you know, separating families and misplacing families, especially kids, from their parents that don't really know what's going on. But I just feel like there should be a certain procedure and a certain way that is done, if it is done. It shouldn't be just a camp and you just place whoever in it. You know, I feel like there should be regulations to it.
Yeah. Well, the due process, and that's one of the issues, right? Is that we always kind of rely on due process as sort of the guardrail. Trump will have the power to remove that.
I think that's one of those things that maybe, I don't know, some supporters and some people who voted for Trump are like fine with, like, you shouldn't have been here anyway, so this is what happens. And then I think others are taking the perspective of, it's not really my problem how it's done. It's my problem that I'm struggling. It's your problem to figure out how to fix it. And so what that looks like, I don't really care about that. And I think that that's maybe another mentality a lot of people have. So I think even asking the question is maybe challenging in a way that a lot of maybe listeners and folks might think, like, I don't really care about that because that's not really my problem. That's not what I voted on, though many people did, in fact, vote on immigration. But I think in many ways that immigration argument was really an economic one. It was like, I'm voting because immigration's a problem because I feel like immigrants are causing me to not, like, have a job. It was really an economic problem.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I am processing myself. I am struggling with seeing what the post-Trump election world looks like. And it's just hard to get your arms around. So let me throw another couple of headlines at us just to see if it. So this is another CNN headline. Special counsel tells court he is assessing future of Trump criminal cases. Okay, so if you remember, Trump was convicted of 34 felony counts involving basically reporting issues in New York. Now, those are state charges, and he is yet to be sentenced for it. I believe the sentencing is scheduled sometime in 2 weeks.
I think we're supposed to have a meeting, I think, next week about it.
Yeah. So the Supreme Court has already ruled that as a president cannot be criminally charged for any acts committed during his presidency. So there we go. What do we have any thoughts about that?
I think with that, being in the headlines and like since he hasn't been like charged officially, like been to court, they got the final whatever. I know a lot of people were saying like the fight isn't over, and they did highlight how Harris, she worked in all three branches, so they were like, yeah, this fight is definitely not over. She may have lost the battle, but it's definitely a war brewing. So I'm just waiting to see.
Well, that's another headline. Okay,
Yeah.
so that is now. If you listen to Harris's concession speech, basically she talked about that. Is that the fight's not over, the resistance begins, right? So one of the headlines this morning, this is out of NPR, was that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, has called a special session to basically Trump-proof California's regulations and laws. Did you guys catch that? So the idea is that they want to whatever the Trump administration comes up with, they want California basically to try to be exempt from that.
How would that would that look though? Them just creating their own laws and regulations as a state.
Every state does. Every state has their own laws and regulations. But of course, federal rules and laws tend to trump that, as it were. But I guess there are certain things you can do, like if it's a state, you can enshrine a lot of things in the state constitution that would then have greater authority, I guess, than a executive order or some kind of legislative rule. I don't know, actually.
So he said that before any changes have been made.
Yeah,
You're preempting.
preempting.
So, it all depends on the changes that are implemented. If the governor of California believes that a change Trump has implemented would not be helpful for his state, then by all means, do what you got to do to protect the people of your state. But I'm not going to say it's too early, but I believe it's too early to publicly say that. Of course, be thinking it, preparing yourself, but to say that
Interesting.
whatever Trump is going to do, we're going to Trump-proof him. I mean, he hasn't even been inaugurated again yet, so I'm not sure how to feel about that.
Yeah,
Could you read the headline again?
on California, I don't have the headline in front of me, but it's basically the story is that California Governor Gavin Newsom is calling a special legislative session to Trump-proof California.
So basically, he's saying like California doesn't want anything to do with Trump. That's what
It's less about anything to do with Trump and more about things like mass deportations, environmental regulations that would be rolled back, all of those other kinds of things.
I think he's being proactive. Honestly, like as a mayor, you have your whole area to worry about, not just you, not just who voted for him, who didn't. So I think that's kind of being proactive in that sense. But like Travis said, he hasn't even been inaugurated yet, so we don't know what changes are to come.
Yeah.
Well, and all due respect, Mr. Newsom, but it's all about the states making the decisions for themselves. So I don't think this is a problem. This is a non-problem, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, and it's interesting. So, yeah. Also, yesterday, another headline in the news: Illinois governor says, President-elect Trump, if you want to reach any of our citizens, you have to go through me first. So there you go. That's another clear. We're not turning our state militia or our state law enforcement over to a federal program of deportation, right? So we're going to see that across the country. So we'll pick up on some new headlines on the other side.
Sponsorship comes from American Graphics. Located at 8 Commercial Warehouse Drive in Hattiesburg, American Graphics provides custom screen printing and embroidery. They can be reached by phone at 601-602-2277. And the website is goamericangraphics.com. American Graphics, printing at its finest. Join Southern Miss Radio on Sunday mornings from 6 a.m. till noon for Sunday Brunch. You'll get jazz and swing music from artists as wide-ranging as Bix Beiderbecke to Brad Meldau. From Dippermouth himself to Esperanza Spalding. But relax, you don't need to know anything about the music to enjoy it. It's a great way to wake up on Sunday morning. Sunday Brunch from 6 a.m. until noon on Southern Miss Radio.
Okay, we are back. Okay, so obviously the election is kind of overwhelming everything. Let me just throw a couple of ideas at you. So what do we think about Elon Musk being a top advisor to the new president? Did you guys catch that in the news?
I think AI is going to take over faster than what it already has. Because me personally, I don't really trust Elon Musk just by a lot of his ideas, thoughts, and practices. So him being an advisor to Trump, I don't think that part is going to go well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about that either. Obviously, Elon Musk is a genius. He's came up with a car company, spaceship company, all that. He's a billionaire. But like Lillian said, some of his ideas and sometimes the way he talks in interviews, it gives me the creeps sometimes, because smart people, they always know more than you, or at least they think they do. So I'm eager to see how it go. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm more so on the side right now of not trusting it, just because I mean he's a genius, but this is the president. This is far more than mathematics and reading a book. So I'm just eager to see how it goes. I'm not a huge fan of it right now, but I'm not a hater of it right now,
Yeah.
so to say.
Okay. Any immediate thoughts, Dr. Hale, about
Man,
Elon
I
Musk?
don't know. I don't know. That's just such a strange one. Musk is so unreliable in so many different ways, and like his thinking on things, and who knows what that'll end up looking like. And there's various promises that get made and don't get kept. So who knows if he'll actually end up.
Well, yeah, exactly. The only really concrete thing I heard was that, or saw, was that Elon has pledged that he will help Trump trim $1 trillion from the government budget. There you go. And actually, I kind of believe he'll do that. Now, the pain that will cause, who knows? But that's part. What do we think about R.F. Kennedy Jr. being in the cabinet or being a top health advisor to the new president?
Just for him or for
For
the
us,
United States? No.
for the country.
No.
You're not buying that at all.
No.
Wow, that was quick.
That's John Kennedy's son.
He is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s son, and he is the guy that ran. It is
Senior's son, because
Yeah.
he's junior.
Yeah, junior. Yeah, and he initially ran for president, and then dropped out. He ran as an independent, and then endorsed Trump. And he is well known for his health kind of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I actually love the Kennedys. I did a little bit of research about them. You know, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and I believe that they were a group of guys that were actually pushing for the right change, the positive change. And I feel like that's why, you know, some of them are no longer here with us, but that's another topic. And I don't know too much about R.F. Kennedy Jr., but if he's anything like his father, I support it.
Yeah, well, his whole campaign was essentially that, right? It was trying to take advantage of the name
Of the
recognition.
Kennedy name, but he's
and
not
that's-
much at all like his father.
And apparently, from what I was reading this morning, he's starting to not be as considered. He had made some comments about vaccines and stuff, and just today, there's a little bit of kind of backing off. of
Yeah,
him.
I think there's some backing off of what role he'll play, but I suspect he'll still have the ear of the president. Well, this has been a great show, guys. I super appreciate it. These are tough days for many of us. And happy days, I think, for others of us, and that's just the way our country is right now. So this is where we talking about these things, reading what's going on in the world is not a negative. In my view, it's a positive. You have to know in order to decide, and we need decisions. So there you go. That's why we're here. So this has been a production of Southern Miss Student Media. Our producer is Lillian Scott. Thank you, Lillian. As always, our videographer is Blake Lawrence, and our engineer is Triderica Winters, and we'll be back next week.
This has been News You Need with Dr. Ed Simpson. News You Need airs Friday afternoon at 12:30.